The silence was deafening. I'm standing in a mansion that's now legally mine. The same family that voted me out of their lives just 2 years ago is now begging at my front door. Let me back up. My name is Sarah. And this is the story of how my own blood family literally voted me out of their lives. How they chose money over their own daughter. And how the universe had other plans. You see, when you're discarded by the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally, you learn something. You learn that family isn't always blood. Sometimes, it's the stranger next door who sees you crying on your porch at midnight. That stranger was Mr. Henderson, 83 years old. Lived alone in the biggest house on Maple Street. The same street where I grew up, in the smallest house. Where my family crammed 6 people into a 2-bedroom rental. But I'm getting ahead of myself. 2 days ago, I got a call from a lawyer. Mr. Henderson had passed away. And somehow, this man I barely knew, this neighbor who had no obligation to me, left me everything. His house, his savings, his investments. $3.7 million. And now, my mother is outside my new front door. The same woman who stood in our living room 2 years ago and literally held a family vote. A vote on whether I deserved to stay in the family. I lost that vote. 4-1. The irony? She's not knocking on the door. She's ringing the doorbell. Like a visitor. Like someone who doesn't belong here. Because she doesn't. But let me tell you how we got here. Let me tell you about the family that chose their pride over their daughter. And how a lonely old man became the father I never had. This story starts with a family meeting. The kind where you know your life is about to change forever. Growing up in the Martinez household was like walking on eggshells. Every single day. My mother, Rosa, she ruled that house with an iron fist. My father, Miguel, he was a ghost. Present in body, absent in spirit. My 3 older brothers, they learned early that survival meant staying on mom's good side. And me? I was the accident. Born 7 years after my youngest brother, Danny. My mother never let me forget that I wasn't planned. That I was the reason they couldn't afford a bigger house. The reason Dad had to work double shifts at the factory. But here's what really aided her. I was different. While my brothers were content to work minimum wage jobs. I had dreams. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to be more than what that tiny house on Maple Street could offer. And my mother, she took that personally. Who do you think you are, she'd say, stirring her coffee with that look in her eyes. That mixture of disgust and disappointment. You think you're better than us? I was 12 when she first said that to me. 12, when I brought home a report card with straight A's. Instead of pride, I got resentment. School won't pay the bills, Mija, she'd say, every time I brought home an achievement award. Every time a teacher called to praise my work. The worst part? My brothers ate it up. Carlos, my oldest brother, he was 25 and still living at home. Working at the same factory as Dad. Same dead-end job, same dead-end life. And when I got accepted to community college with a partial scholarship, he laughed. Look at Princess Sarah, he'd say, loud enough for the whole house to hear. Too good for the rest of us. But it was my mother's reaction that broke something inside me. She sat me down at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten thousands of meals together. And she looked me in the eyes and said the words that still haunt me. If you leave for college, Sarah, don't expect to come back. This family sticks together. We don't abandon each other for some fancy dreams. I was 17 years old. And that's when I first noticed Mr. Henderson. He was outside, tending to his rose garden, when I ran out of the house crying that day. This old man, with kind eyes and gentle hands, looked up from his flowers. You okay there, sweetheart? He called out. I didn't answer. I was too embarrassed, too hurt. But from that day forward, I'd catch him watching. Not in a creepy way. In a protective way. Like he could sense the war happening inside that little house next door. When I graduated high school, valedictorian of my class, my family didn't come to the ceremony. They said it was showing off. But Mr. Henderson was there, sitting in the back row, clapping louder than anyone else. After the ceremony, he walked up to me, handed me a card. Inside was a check for $500 and a note that said, "For the girl who's going places. Don't let anyone dim your light." I cried right there in the school parking lot. That summer, I worked 3 jobs to save money for college. My family watched me leave the house at 5 a.m. and come home at midnight every single day. Not once did they ask if I needed help. But Mr. Henderson did. He'd leave sandwiches on his porch railing, right where I'd see them during my walk to work. He'd accidentally make too much lemonade and offer me a glass when I was walking home exhausted. Small gestures. But they meant everything. When I finally left for college, my mother didn't say goodbye. She was washing dishes, back turned to me, as I carried my suitcase to the car. My father gave me a quick hug. My brothers pretended I didn't exist. But Mr. Henderson, he was on his porch, waving. "You go show them what you're made of, sweetheart," he called out. I didn't know it then, but that would be the last kind words I'd hear from anyone in my family for a very long time. Let me know in the comments where you are watching this video from. I'd love to know. College was everything I hoped it would be. I studied business, worked part-time, made friends. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere. But every holiday, every break, I'd come home hoping things had changed. They never did. For years later, I graduated with honors, business degree in hand, and a job offer from a marketing firm in the city. I was finally making something of myself. But when I came home to share the news, my family's reaction was colder than I expected. "So you're leaving again," my mother said, not even looking up from her telenovela. Big surprise. "Mom, I got a real job. A career. I can finally help out with money." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Help out?" She turned to face me, and I saw something in her eyes I'd never seen before. Pure contempt. Where was this help when your father got laid off last year? Where was this help when Carlos got arrested and needed bail money? I felt my stomach drop. Dad got laid off? Carlos got arrested? Why didn't anyone tell me? "Because you weren't here," Danny chimed in from the kitchen. "You were too busy playing college girl." Playing? The word came out sharper than I intended. I was working 2 jobs and going to school full-time. "For yourself," my mother interrupted. "Everything you do is for yourself." That's when my father spoke up. The man who barely said 10 words to me my entire childhood suddenly had plenty to say. "Your mother's right, Mija. Family comes first. But you put yourself first. Always." I looked around the room. At my 3 brothers, nodding in agreement. At my mother, with her arms crossed. At my father, avoiding eye contact. "So what are you saying?" I asked, though I was starting to understand. "We're saying." My mother stood up and walked to the window. The same window that faced Mr. Henderson's house. "Maybe it's time we stop pretending that you're really part of this family." The silence that followed was suffocating. "What does that mean?" I whispered. Carlos spoke first. "It means we're tired of having a sister who thinks she's better than us." "It means," Danny added, "we're tired of you judging our choices." "It means," my mother said, turning back to face me, "we're going to take a vote." A vote. On my own family membership. Are you serious right now? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want to vote me out?" It's simple, my mother said, her voice eerily calm. All in favor of Sarah remaining part of this family, raise your hand. I looked at my father. Surely he wouldn't go along with this. He stared at the floor. Dad? I pleaded. Nothing. I looked at Carlos, the brother who used to carry me on his shoulders when I was little. His arms stayed at his sides. Danny, the brother I helped with homework for years. He shook his head. All opposed, my mother asked. For hands went up. For hands, from the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally. The vote is 4-1. My mother's voice was steady, matter of fact. Like she was reading the weather. Sarah, you're no longer welcome in this family. I felt like I was drowning. Like the room was spinning. You can't be serious. We are, my mother said. You have until tomorrow to get your things. After that, we don't want to see you here again. I stood there for what felt like hours, waiting for someone, anyone, to say this was a joke. No one did. Fine, I finally said, my voice barely a whisper. Fine. But don't you ever, contact me again. I walked to my old bedroom, the room I'd dreamed in for 18 years. And I started packing. As I was carrying my boxes to my car, I heard a voice behind me. Sarah? You okay, sweetheart? Mr. Henderson. Standing at the fence between our properties, concern written all over his face. I'm fine, I lied, tears streaming down my face. No, you're not. He opened his gate. Come here. I don't know why, but I did. I walked over to this old man, this neighbor I barely knew. And he hugged me. Actually hugged me. Whatever happened in there, it's their loss, he said softly. You're a good girl, Sarah. Don't let anyone tell you different. I sobbed. Right there, on his driveway. Sobbed like a child. I don't have anywhere to go, I admitted. You do now, he said simply. I have a guest room. It's yours, for as long as you need it. Before I tell you what I did next, if you're enjoying the story, please subscribe. Help us reach 1,000 subscribers. That night, I moved into Mr. Henderson's house. The irony wasn't lost on me. The biggest house on the street had just become my home, while the people who shared my DNA lived next door like strangers. But here's what I didn't know. What I couldn't have known. Mr. Henderson had been watching my family for years. He'd seen the way they treated me. He'd heard the arguments through the thin walls. And he'd been planning something. Something that would change everything. Living with Mr. Henderson was like discovering what a real family felt like. He never asked for rent. Never made me feel like a burden. Instead, he asked about my job, my dreams, my plans. We'd sit on his back porch every evening, drinking iced tea and talking about everything. He told me stories about his late wife, Margaret. About how they'd never had children, but always wanted them. You're like the granddaughter I never had, he'd say, and my heart would break a little. Because this stranger, this wonderful man, was giving me what my own family never could. Unconditional love. For 2 years, we lived like this. I got promoted twice at work. Started dating a wonderful man named David. Built a real life. And my family? Radio silence. I'd see them sometimes when I was coming home from work. They'd look right through me, like I was invisible. Like I'd never existed. It hurt, but it also freed me. Then, 3 months ago, Mr. Henderson got sick. Cancer. Stage 4. Don't look so sad, sweetheart, he said when the doctor delivered the news. I'm 83. I've had a good run. But I was devastated. This man, this father figure who'd saved me, was dying. The last month was hard. I took time off work to care for him, to make sure he wasn't alone. And that's when he told me about his will. Sarah, I need you to know something. We were sitting in his hospital room, machines beeping around us. I'm leaving you everything. What? Mr. Henderson, no. You barely know me. I know you, he interrupted, his voice weak but firm. I've watched you for years. Watched how you never gave up. How you stayed kind, even when your own family was cruel. But your estate, it's worth $3.7 million, he finished. The house, my investments, my savings, all of it, yours. I started crying. I don't deserve this. You deserve more, he whispered. You deserve a family that sees your worth. And if your blood family can't, then I'll be your family. He passed away on a Tuesday morning, peacefully in his sleep. And I was heartbroken. The funeral was small. Just me, David, a few neighbors, and the pastor. My family? They didn't even know he died. But here's where the story gets interesting. See, Mr. Henderson's lawyer had specific instructions. Very specific instructions. The will reading was to be held at the house. My house now. And certain people were to be invited, including my family. I didn't understand why, until the lawyer explained. Mr. Henderson wanted them to know, he said simply. He wanted them to see what they threw away. So there I was, standing in the living room of my mansion. Yes, mansion. Looking out the window at the tiny house where I grew up. The doorbell rang. My stomach dropped. Through the peephole, I could see them. My mother, my father, all three brothers, looking confused. They thought they were here for someone else's will reading. Maybe they thought they'd inherited something from the old man next door. I opened the door. Sarah? My mother's face went pale. What are you doing here? I live here, I said simply. The confusion on their faces was almost comical. Live here? Carlos pushed past me, into the foyer. What do you mean you live here? I mean, this is my house. The lawyer cleared his throat behind me. If everyone would please, take a seat. We have some business to discuss. My family filed in, still looking bewildered. They sat on Mr. Henderson's expensive leather sofa, the same sofa where he and I had watched movies countless times. We're here today, the lawyer began, for the reading of the last will and testament of Robert James Henderson. My father spoke up. I'm sorry, but why are we here? We barely knew the old man. The lawyer smiled. Mr. Henderson knew you quite well, actually. He lived next door to you for over 30 years. Okay, my mother said slowly. But what does that have to do with us? Everything, the lawyer replied. You see, Mr. Henderson has left his entire estate to your daughter. The silence was deafening. I'm sorry, what? Danny's voice cracked. Sarah Martinez, the lawyer continued, is now the sole inheritor of Mr. Henderson's estate, including this house, his investment portfolio, and his savings account. How much? Carlos asked, his voice barely a whisper. $3.7 million. My mother's face went through several emotions. Confusion, shock, and then greed. That's impossible, she said, standing up. She barely knew him. Actually, I spoke for the first time since they'd arrived. I lived here for 2 years. After you voted me out of the family, the reality was starting to sink in. You lived here? My father asked. He took me in, I said, my voice getting stronger. When my own family threw me away, he gave me a home. Sarah, my mother's voice changed, became softer. Mija, there's been a misunderstanding. No misunderstanding, I interrupted. You held a vote. Remember? 4-1. I lost. We were upset. Carlos stammered. You were upset? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You voted me out of the family, told me I wasn't welcome. And now that I have money, you want to talk. The lawyer cleared his throat again. There's more. More? Mr. Henderson left specific instructions. Sarah, he wanted me to read this in front of your family. He handed me an envelope with my name on it in Mr. Henderson's shaky handwriting. I opened it with trembling hands. My dear Sarah, I read aloud. If you're reading this, then I'm gone. And your family is finally seeing what they lost. I looked up. My family was staring at me, hanging on every word. You came to me broken, I continued reading. Thrown away by people who should have treasured you. But I saw what they couldn't see. Your strength. Your kindness. Your worth. My mother started crying. I'm giving you my estate, not just because you deserve it, but because I want your family to understand. What they did to you was unforgivable. My father put his head in his hands. They chose their pride over their daughter. They chose resentment over love. And now they can watch from that tiny house as you live the life you always deserved. The letter went on, but I couldn't read anymore because my family was falling apart in front of me. The aftermath was swift. My mother was the first to try. 3 days after the will reading, she showed up at my front door. Not ringing the doorbell this time. Knocking. Desperately. Sarah, please. We need to talk. I watched her through the security camera that Mr. Henderson had installed years ago. She looked smaller somehow. Older. I didn't open the door. Instead, I spoke through the intercom. We talked, I said simply. 2 years ago. You said everything you needed to say. Mija, please. I'm your mother. No, I replied, my voice steady. You stopped being my mother the day you voted me out. She stood there for 20 minutes, crying, pleading. I watched and felt nothing. The next day, it was my father. Then Carlos. Then Danny. Each one with their own version of desperation. But it was the text messages that really showed me who they were. My phone started buzzing nonstop. From my mother, Sarah, we made a mistake. Family forgives. Please call me. From Carlos, I'm sorry. We were wrong. Can we talk? I need help with my legal situation. From Danny, Mom is crying every day. She's sorry. We all are. Please come home. And then, the truth came out. From my father, the bank is foreclosing on the house. We need help. Your family. Please. There it was. They weren't sorry. They were desperate. The house they'd kicked me out of was being taken by the bank. My father had been out of work longer than they'd admitted. Carlos's legal troubles were more serious than a simple arrest. They were broke. And suddenly, their estranged daughter with $3.7 million looked pretty appealing. But here's where Mr. Henderson's planning became truly brilliant. See, he hadn't just left me money. He'd left me information. His lawyer handed me a folder a week after the will reading. Mr. Henderson asked me to give you this if your family started contacting you. Inside the folder were documents, photos, financial records. For 30 years, Mr. Henderson had been documenting everything. Every fight he'd overheard. Every time I'd been humiliated. Every cruel comment. Every dismissive gesture. He'd kept receipts. But more than that, he'd kept track of their finances too. He knew about my father's gambling problem. The money my mother had borrowed and never paid back. Carlos's drug arrests that the family had covered up. He knew everything. And he'd given me the choice. Use the information or take the high road. I chose a third option. I called a family meeting. This time at my house. My rules. They all came. Of course they did. Hope makes people desperate. We sat in my living room, the same room where they'd learned about my inheritance. But this time, I was in control. I know why you're here, I began, looking at each of them. And it's not because you miss me. That's not true. My mother started. It's exactly true. I opened the folder. Mr. Henderson had left me. Dad, you owe $67,000 to various casinos. Mom, you borrowed $12,000 from your sister and told her I would pay it back when I got successful. Their faces went white. Carlos, 3 drug arrests, 2 DUIs. Danny, you've been stealing from your employer for 6 months. How do you? Carlos's voice trailed off. Mr. Henderson knew everything, I said calmly. 30 years of watching. 30 years of documentation. I pulled out a stack of photos. Pictures of me crying on the porch after family fights. Pictures of me walking to work at 5 a.m. while they slept in. He saw it all, I continued. The way you treated me. The way you threw me away. My mother was crying now. Real tears, not the manipulative kind. We're family, she whispered. No, I said firmly. We're not. I stood up and walked to the window. The same window Mr. Henderson used to sit by, watching over me. Here's what's going to happen, I said, turning back to face them. Nothing. Nothing, my father asked. Nothing. I'm not giving you money. I'm not bailing you out. I'm not saving you. Sarah, Danny pleaded. We're desperate. I was desperate too, I replied. When you voted me out. When you told me I wasn't family. Was I desperate when I had nowhere to live? Silence. But here's the difference, I continued. When I was desperate, a stranger helped me. A man who owed me nothing gave me everything. I walked back to my chair and sat down. You want to know what Mr. Henderson taught me? Real family doesn't vote you out when you succeed. Real family doesn't abandon you when you need them. I looked at each of them, one by one. Real family celebrates your wins instead of resenting them. My mother stood up, her legs shaky. So, that's it? You're just going to abandon us? The irony was not lost on me. I'm not abandoning you, I said simply. I'm just not saving you. There's a difference. They left that day without another word. 3 weeks later, they lost the house. The little house on Maple Street, where I'd grown up dreaming of escape. They had to move in with my aunt, across town. All of them. In a 2-bedroom apartment. And me? I'm still here. In Mr. Henderson's house. My house. I've started a scholarship fund, in his name, for kids who come from families that don't support their dreams. I've donated to local charities. I've helped my neighbors. I've built the life Mr. Henderson always believed I could have. But my family? They still text sometimes. Holiday messages. Birthday wishes. Occasional pleas for help. I don't respond. Because Mr. Henderson taught me the most important lesson of all. You can't choose your blood, but you can choose your family. 6 months have passed since that final family meeting. And I'm happy, actually happy, for the first time in my life. I wake up every morning in the house where I learned what love actually looks like. I drink my coffee on the same porch where Mr. Henderson used to sit, where he used to wave at me when I was that broken girl carrying boxes to my car. Sometimes, I catch glimpses of my family. They're living across town now, in that cramped apartment. And sometimes, I feel a flicker of sadness. Not guilt. Just sadness. For what could have been. But then I remember the vote. For hands raised against me. And I remember Mr. Henderson's words. You can't choose your blood, but you can choose your family. I've chosen well. David and I are engaged now. We're planning our wedding for next spring. In the garden, where Mr. Henderson grew his roses. My real family will be there. My coworkers who celebrated my promotions. My neighbors who check on me. My friends who see my worth. People who choose to love me. Not because they have to, but because they want to. And that makes all the difference. The scholarship fund has already helped 12 kids go to college. Kids whose families don't support their dreams. Kids like I used to be. Mr. Henderson would be proud. Sometimes people ask me if I miss them. My blood family. The honest answer? I miss the idea of them. I miss what they could have been if they'd chosen love over pride. But I don't miss the constant rejection, the walking on eggshells, the feeling like I was never enough. I'm enough now, more than enough. And it took a stranger to teach me that. So here's what I want you to take from this story. Family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about showing up. It's about seeing someone's worth and choosing to honor it. Mr. Henderson saw mine when my own family couldn't. And now, I see yours too. If you're watching this and you're struggling with family who doesn't value you, remember this. You deserve better. You deserve people who celebrate your success instead of resenting it. You deserve to be chosen. And if the people who share your DNA can't do that, then find the ones who can. They're out there. Trust me. If you liked this story, check out this other one on the screen about second chances and the families we build instead of the ones we're born into. See you there.